Good afternoon. We welcome Chamber members to the Searcy Regional Chamber of Commerce's In the Know virtual series. I'm Charles Gaines, Chair of the Government Affairs Committee of the Chamber. Today, we are pleased to present a virtual candidates forum with the 4 candidates for Mayor of Searcy: Kyle Osborne, April Butler, Matt Faulkner, and Jason McGlawn. This event is being recorded and will be available for viewing by the public as a listing on the Chamber's website and placed as a link in an email sent to the Chamber membership. We cannot have these events without our sponsors and gratefully thank our following sponsors for supporting this event: First Community Bank, First Security Bank, and Unity Health. I also thank Buck Lane, President and CEO of the Chamber, and Tara Cathy, Vice President of the Chamber, along with the Government Affairs Committee for ideas, planning, and execution of this event. For audience members, we recommend you use the speaker setting to have the current speaker highlighted on your screen, and please also ensure you are muted. And one way to do so is to touch the space bar on your keyboard. We are privileged to have Casey Cullifer serve as our moderator for this virtual candidates forum. Casey is the president and general counsel of Riverwind Bank, a local community bank with offices in Searcy. Casey, thank you for serving as our moderator today, and our event is now under your guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Can everybody hear me okay?
And
Yep. Deal.
Yes,
Well, we
sir.
appreciate all the candidates' participation in today's event. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some of the ground rules and the format. Prior to the question format, each individual candidate will be given 2 minutes to introduce themselves. After the introduction, we will begin the question format. Names of the candidates have randomly been drawn to establish the order in which the candidates will answer the first question. Thereafter, the names will be sequentially rotated for each successive question. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer each question. If a candidate desires a rebuttal, he or she will be provided 1 minute to provide that rebuttal. At the conclusion of the question format, each candidate will be provided 1 minute to provide a closing statement. Any questions from the candidates?
Sounds good.
ready.
Hearing none, let's begin the introduction format. Mr. Osborne, would you mind introducing yourself to the forum?
My name is Kyle Osborne. I'm currently serving as mayor, as most of you know. I have lived in Searcy for slightly over 40 years. I love Searcy. I moved here, went to work for the Searcy Police Department, where I served 30 years. The last 7 years as the police chief. Attended the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, training all over the United States in leadership and management and budget. And I just felt like as mayor, I could make a difference in this community, and ran, and as you know, was successful, and we have grown in the last, I'm going to say the last 2 years, because the first 2 with COVID, it kind of held us back a little bit, but we worked hard in 19 and 20, but in 20 and 21 we have really prospered. And if you look around, you see all of the success with the new construction going on in Searcy, and I'm just tickled to death to be a part of it. And we have a lot of plans, and I would like to see those plans come to fruition. And I'm just excited about this campaign and ready to go forward.
Thank you. Mr. McGlawn, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Jason McGlawn, and I'm a follower of Christ first, and my faith leads me in everything that I do. I've been married to my wife, Penny, for 21 years, and we have 2 wonderful children, Joshua and Rachel. I came to Searcy in 1996 to attend Harding University and earned a Master in Business Administration. I've previously owned a small business prior to getting into law enforcement, where I started as a state trooper. I've been with the Searcy Police Department for 9 years. For the past 5 years, I've been working behind the scenes in many different roles. I've been described as the Swiss Army knife of the department. In this time, I've implemented many initiatives that have saved the city money and have also helped streamline and simplify processes that have saved time for our employees in the police, fire departments, as well as the district court. I'm currently sergeant over our dispatch, technology, accreditation, and I manage over $1 million in no match grants funding that which has allowed me to work very closely with City Hall. These grants have provided much needed equipment, additional school resource officers, and is bringing innovative solutions to combating the drug crisis in our community. I've also led our department to get our accreditation, which we're actually going to receive next week at the Arkansas Chiefs of Police Conference. In May, I began literally running for mayor. I began running in the neighborhoods across Searcy and stopped to talk to those I met along the way. Since then, I've run over 220 miles and have run almost every residential street in Searcy. I've talked to countless people from all walks of life and have asked how we can improve things in Searcy. The responses include things as better roads, sidewalks, drainage issues, more stores, things to do, regular trash and limb pickup. I also had requests for things such as finding jobs and for more resources for those in recovery from substance abuse. The more I talked to people, the more I saw people were hurting or needed help. We as a city have a great opportunity to help unify our community. My first goal as mayor is to prioritize our people. If we take care of our employees and citizens, our city will continue to thrive. My second goal is to be a good steward of the funds that are available and to be accountable and promote progress without excess.
Thank you, Mr. McGlawn. Ms. Butler, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is April Butler. I've lived in Searcy for 22 years. I have a bachelor's degree in public relations and a master's degree in teaching, both from Harding University. I've been an educator for 22 years. The last 17 years, I've been an English teacher at Searcy High School. Before that, I was an English teacher at Augusta High School. And prior to that, I was an adjunct instructor in the Department of Communications at Harding. I have, my husband and I have raised both of our daughters here. We chose to come back to Searcy after we were Harding students to raise our family here. Both of my girls are Searcy High School graduates. I have served on the Moving Searcy Forward Committee, and I currently serve on the board for Searcy Young Life. I became interested in public service at a young age. My grandfather was a city councilman for his town, and I would attend meetings with him, and he later became the city manager. So I got to see the inner workings of city government through his eyes. That's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, would you mind introducing yourself?
Be happy to, and thank you to the Chamber and the Governmental Affairs Committee for hosting us today. But if I haven't worked with you yet, my name is Matt Faulkner. I've lived in Searcy now 24 years, moved up here from Florida to attend Harding University, and that's where I met my wife, Shelley, maiden name Lawson. And we have 3 boys, all of which are in Searcy Public Schools, and Shelley is also a teacher in Searcy Public Schools, 4th grade at the middle school. And so right out of college, we started a business, which is called Think Idea Studio. It's a marketing company. We started it from our home, and that's been 20 years ago now. And since then, we've renovated the old Robin Sanford Mercantile downtown. That's where our studio is located now. And over the past 20 years, we've been blessed to work with over 2,000 businesses and organizations, empowering them through marketing services and business development. And it's through our relationships that we've been able to work with a lot of nonprofits and get involved with a lot of community efforts. So I'm just going to list a few here. I'm currently serving on the Searcy Regional Economic Development Board. Formerly, I led the Searcy Chamber Small Business Committee and developed programs like Small Biz University and mentorship programs. I also have served as past president of Jacob's Place Homeless Mission. I'm a co-founder of Searcy Beats and Eats Festivals and Events. Kicked off and helped start the Think Art Project. So the murals that you see downtown Art Alley and Citizens Park, we're working with a group to help install all of those. Was fortunate to help lead Searcy as we won Small Business Revolution. That was a super exciting time for our community as we all pulled together in one direction. I am the community coordinator for Global Entrepreneurship Week. I often travel around the state speaking on the topics of placemaking and how arts and culture can help enhance economic development in towns around Arkansas. I've helped organize and lead efforts like for beautification, like Searcy's Big Bloomin' Weekend and Park and Pray events, especially during COVID, and portraits of American heroes for veterans. I've served on the beautification committee, on the Holiday of Lights committee. Our business was chosen as Business of the Year in 2017 by the Chamber, and Rotary honored me with Citizen of the Year in 2019. We've worked with tons of nonprofits, Sparrow's Promise, Hope Restored, United Way, Sunshine School. My heart is for Searcy. This has been all on a volunteer basis. A lot of the progress that the mayor mentioned is because of groups that we've worked together with the city to collaborate to make good things happen. And so this is just a way I can move from a volunteer position to a full-time position and put the pedal down and help Searcy grow.
Thank you. Thank you all the candidates for the introduction. We'll now move into the question format. Again, prior to this event, a random selection of names was conducted. The following will be the order in which the first question is answered. First will be Mr. McGlawn. Second will be Mr. Osborne. Third will be Ms. Butler. And last will be Mr. Faulkner. And just as a reminder, we'll continue to rotate that. So as for the question, second question, Mr. Osborne will be first. Mr. McGlawn will go last, and we'll continue that successive rotation. So now to the first question, Mr. McGlawn, this is for you. Why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish as mayor?
So I'm running because over the past few years, I've seen how the city has not necessarily lost their priorities, but we need to make our priorities back to our people. Our people as employees are our biggest resource. And if we can't keep our employees, it's going to be very hard to continue to grow like we have. As a supervisor last year, we've been trying to take care of our employees, especially like with our dispatchers. That's where it started at. And we wanted to be able to help get them into a pay, step, and grade plan. And we kept presenting that and presenting it, but it just keeps getting pushed off. They finally made the personnel committee earlier this year, and it's been a very big project. And I've been blessed to be able to see that firsthand with that. But the process has just keep getting pushed back and pushed back. And so right now it's looking as if it'll be in January. But over the past 4 months, I've lost 4 dispatchers with over 35 years of experience combined, because they've been promised things, and we can't fulfill that. And it's just, we're kind of in a breaking point where if we can't take care of our people, we can't continue to go on. Our fire department has half the department, but that has less than 2 years experience, because they come here to get trained and then they move off to other departments. And so I know it's been a process of trying to get that, and the city council and the mayor have been working on that, but there's been priorities that have been pursued that weren't what they should have been. And so just trying to get that to where we put our priority first of our people and taking care of our people. Because if we don't have our people to continue the work, then our city will just not be able to proceed like it should be. And so I'm just trying to make a difference for our employees. And that goes even further than that, just the people in the community as well. If we can take care of them, it'll help them to help the community grow even more. So.
Thank you, Mr. McGlawn.
Thank you.
Mr. Osborne, same question. Why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish as mayor?
Well, I'm running for re-election because we have accomplished so much. And, I'm not exactly sure where Mr. McClellan's getting his information. I mean, I took that somewhat as a jab, so to speak, at my administration as far as the employees. But we'll discuss that a little more here in a minute. But 4 years as mayor, and again, we've accomplished so much. In 2018, the year before I took over, we had $44 million in sales of building permits. This year so far, we're at $92 million. We are moving this town forward, and with my leaders, I get my department heads. We work every day. We try to meet every Monday morning. I meet with different department heads every day. There's just so much to do in this community. I want to continue to move it forward the way I have for the last 4 years. And as far as a rebuttal, do we do that at the end of the questions or now, or how do we do that?
I think you can continue to speak in your direct answer to the question. Later, if there is something you feel like you need to rebut, we could address that in a 1 minute rebuttal if you needed to.
Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, thank you very much. I'll do that in a minute then.
Ms. Butler, same question for you. Why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish as mayor?
Okay, around 2 years ago, I became involved by attending a town hall meeting. And through that, I then participated in a focus group. And from there, I was asked to be a part of the Moving Searcy Forward committee, and I began attending every city council member meeting, every agenda meeting that I possibly, an AMP meeting that I possibly could. All of that, all that information that I was taking in spurred my decision to run. I want to bring transparency to the workings of our city and our city finances. Currently, the way our budget is set up, I can't tell you what the mayor of Searcy makes. I'm literally running for a position that I have no idea what the salary is, because it's one lump sum that says mayor's office salaries. Our county budget, it lines out line by line what everyone in the county makes. And we need to be that transparent with our residents as well about where the money is going and who is getting what. I want to be more proactive in bringing economic growth to Searcy. Working with the chamber, becoming more proactive with them in Little Rock as well, to bring more businesses and industries and tech jobs to Searcy. Searcy is an intellectual community, and it's a wonderful spot for tech jobs. And I think that we really need to kind of focus on that and be more proactive in bringing those kinds of jobs to Searcy. I want to tap into resources that are currently not being utilized or underutilized in the city. And those are things like grants and ASU Searcy and things like that we have. And lastly, I want to work to improve the quality of life through our recreational facilities for young and old. I think sometimes we forget about our older residents of Searcy, and I think we need to remember them as well in quality of life with recreational facilities.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, same question. Why are you running, and what do you hope to accomplish as mayor?
Absolutely. This is not a new passion of mine. As I've stated, the past 20 years, I've been fortunate to be involved with so many different groups. I love the collaboration. I believe that we are supposed to be the they. And what I mean by that is when people say, oh, I wish they would fix this, or I wish they would do this. to improve our town. Well, I believe we should roll up our sleeves and be the they. We don't just wish things are better, but actually get involved and make things better, help work together to make things better. On a personal level, my boys are getting older. And so I want to help Searcy to be their number one choice to plant their roots and raise their families here. And not just for my family, but for everybody else's families as well. And so, yeah, there's progress being made, but we've got a long ways to go. And I'm tired of Searcy being compared to other towns. I think we need to lean into our points of differentiation. There's a lot that we can do there. My focus is going to be on community development, economic development, and quality of life. And we can kind of dive into each of those different segments a little bit. Our fire, police, and city personnel need to feel respected and valued, and not just monetarily, but value their ideas, especially if they're different from our own ideas. I'm open to collaboration, and also hearing other people's ideas that may be different from my own makes us just that much stronger. I'm a proponent for a family-friendly environment that goes for all city employees. Personally, I don't want to miss my boys' activities with school. And from an empathetic point of view, I think we can be creative on how we can work together so that we don't miss these special moments. All of our employees don't miss these special moments that we won't get back. I expect excellence, and I think that we can step it up. I think we can do better with beautification. I think we can do better with making sure that the city represents ourselves well as the front doorstep to the state as people come here. I think we need to have a strong marketing approach to our community so that we can help fill these 300 to 400 jobs that are currently available. We collaborate with our school systems, both our K through 12 system, as well as ASU and Harding. But we need innovative programs so we can really address this workforce development issue and fill these jobs. We need to be more aggressive with economic development. We're going to work on that. We need to plan for Searcy's growth in the future, ensuring that we have infrastructure that's planned so that we know where we're growing and we're prepared for it. As far as economic development goes as well. There's so much.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner.
We'll continue later.
There is, I'm going to suggest that we not all maybe take a time for rebuttal because we're trying to make it through all of our questions in a timely way. But at the same time, if you feel the need for a rebuttal to any of that, I'm going to pause for a second and allow you to ask for such. Mr. Osborne, specifically, you had mentioned about this. I'm going to pause if there was any need for a 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, this was on one of the statements that Mr. McGlone had made about the employees and losing dispatchers and firemen. That losing firemen to other communities has been a age-old problem in Searcy. This is nothing new. We've worked with salaries for our fire department for years and years. Even back when I was at the police department, they were working on that, trying to retain firemen. Also, is the dispatchers. Searcy, it has one of 2 PSAPs in the county. PSAP is where when you dial 911, it rings into that PSAP. The state is shutting down our PSAP in Searcy, and it will go to the county, which would, in essence, do away with our dispatch center at the police department for 911. And what I've been told, none of the dispatchers have approached me. None of the supervisors over there have approached me. Am I finished?
At that time.
Okay.
Casey, can I speak to that just a second?
Yes.
Okay, and this just has to go with HR and losing staff and employees. Just because that may have been a topic or an issue for years, I don't believe that it's all completely monetary based. I think that it comes down to creating a culture where expectations are clear, that communication lines are open, and also that there is an honest desire to find out what is important. to our employees and what's important where they are in their stage of life, because it changes as time goes on. And then being able to get creative on ways that we can help lean into how can we accommodate what is important to each of those employees. That all goes down to job satisfaction in addition to monetary.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. I'll pause for just a second. Any other rebuttals?
Yeah, let me just talk about the PSAP consolidation. We were made aware of that in April, that we were going to have to consolidate, and they've had meetings since June, but they have not invited the supervisor for the Searcy dispatch to have any influence on that to make any decisions. And so it's hard for the dispatchers to know that we're taking care of them if their questions are not being answered. And so I've talked to our dispatchers, and just because the state has mandated that we have to consolidate together doesn't mean that we have to have just White County running our dispatch center. We can work together to make an awesome thing if we can all work together on it. And that's where a lot of the frustrations come from, is not listening to the needs of the dispatchers. Yes, money is a part of it, but having their questions answered is another huge part.
Thank you. Ms. Butler. We'll move on.
The only thing that I really have to add is that, yeah, our city employees need a competitive wage, and research shows that it's less expensive to retain employees rather than to hire new ones and train them. And so job satisfaction and competitive wage all plays into factor there.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 2. Mr. Osborne, you're going to be the first to answer question number 2. What are your top 3 goals for the office of mayor?
Top 3 goals for the office of mayor is 1, economic development. 2 is quality of life. And 3, believe it or not, is retention of employees. And I can elaborate on that if you would like, or I don't know if you just wanted them listed. So as far as economic development, if you look around Searcy, you see what we're doing there. Construction everywhere you look. Parks and Rec, the addition to Riverside Park, the first time in the history of the Arkansas Department of Parks and Tourism, they invested money in assisting the city to purchase that property. That has never happened before, ever. And so the state has bought into this program. We're working on bike trails and all kinds of things that's going to be located up in Riverside Park. Quality of life, we're doing everything we can. Well, not everything. We're working on as much as we can to retain our youth. We want our kids to stay here. I want my children to stay here. I want my grandchildren to stay here. We all want the same things as far as finding a way to keep these kids here, get these high-paying jobs, or jobs where they can survive. We're not Little Rock. We're not North Little Rock. We're not even Conway. We're Searcy. We love the community we live in. And when I go around every day and visit with folks, they love Searcy. And a lot of them like it just the way it is. A lot of them want to see us continue to do what we're doing as far as the expansions.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Come up on my screen. Was that?
Second to answer be Ms. Butler. Question number 2 is, what are your top 3 goals for the office of mayor?
I think the first thing we have to do is to look at our infrastructure. Searcy has grown, but the infrastructure has not kept up. We need to look at our streets and sanitation. When I talk to people, those are the two biggest areas that they're concerned about because it affects all of us. We've got drainage issues still in streets and standing water in lots of places. Our sanitation, they're doing the best they can, but we have limbs being by the side of the road, turning brown, grass growing up through them. We've got to do better. We've got to equip both streets and sanitation departments to do better. And I know that there are some things in motion that is hopefully going to help that. But you know, if our entire city were underwater, we'd find a way to get out. Okay, we'd find a way to get the water off. And so that's what we have to do. We need to think outside the box a little bit when it comes to streets and sanitation. We've got to look at our recreational facilities. We've got to open up more green space. Our bike and walking trails are great, but we need to update them. We need call boxes, we need lights. We need wayfinding signage through town. Our parks, we can do some challenge courses. There are lots of things that we can do to our recreational facilities. They're lacking compared to cities that are smaller than us. And I am like Mr. Faulkner here, that I don't like being compared to Heber and Batesville all the time. There's no reason why we can't have this type of community center in our community in Searcy. You know, we've got to look at opening up more dog parks. I have a dog myself, and he's a large dog, and I can't put him in the car and take him to the dog park all the time. But we've got to look at opening up more things for our quality of life in our recreational facilities. And of course, economic growth is always going to be a concern. Like Mr. Faulkner said, we have a lot of jobs that are unfilled right now, and we need to get those jobs filled, and we need to grow more jobs, more businesses and industry within Searcy.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, what are your top 3 goals for the office of mayor?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down to top 3 because there's a lot, but I would say, you know, we on our campaign communications, we're really trying to express listen, plan, lead. And so I would say my top 3 are going to be what I have heard as I have discussed over the years and then recently with our community. And so their top needs are, they would like, and it's basic stuff, y'all. They would like, number 1, to feel like we live in a safe and clean community. So that needs to be a priority. And there's ways that we can continue to strengthen our relationships between our police department. And Jason, I think you are doing a great job with this, our police department and the community, to strengthen those relationships, to build trust there. And I think we can do a better job of making our community clean and pretty. Secondly, we have got to address workforce development. This is not just an issue locally, but around our state and nation. And there's innovative approaches that we can pursue toward that. A lot of collaboration, but we've got to fill these jobs, and we've got to recruit in a qualified workforce. We've got to market to those who have connections to Searcy, to Harding, to ASU, to families here, and try to get them back home and bring their families with them. We're doing that also through STEM education. We're working toward helping Searcy be known as a robotics hub, and that's a collaborative effort. And if we can get families to move to Searcy to be a part of that, then their parents are coming along with that. So that's going to help with workforce development. Honestly, we need to continue to work to address mental health and substance abuse in this area. 100 families and so many, our care, Unity Health. There's so many groups that are working to make improvements and headway in this area. We've got to make sure that all of our residents are being taken care of. Those that have mobility issues, transit issues, getting to work, getting to the grocery store, basic things like sidewalks. Sidewalks are a big deal that affect so many different people in different ways. For some, that's their main way of transportation, walking or biking. It's a necessity, not just a luxury. For some, it's for fitness. But our sidewalk situation is in desperate need. So we've got that. We have this 20-year plan going on. As we're thinking about making progress with this 20-year plan, we are also on the cusp of a possible recession and escalating costs. And so we've got to be very cognizant of what we do when, so that we are respectful with how we're spending money.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. McGlaughlin, same question. What are your top 3 goals for the office of mayor?
As I mentioned before, number one is just making sure that we take care of our employees. They're the backbone of our city, and if we don't have those basic workers to fill these positions, then things get left undone. Another goal of mine is just to be more accountable in many different ways, such as how we spend our money. Another goal is having progress, but not doing things excessively, not spending exorbitant amount of money on things for, like, I'm all for pickleball. But a lot of people were very upset with the way that went down. How we've spent so much money, even after the initial cost rose by $1 million, it just keeps going up and up. And I understand that there's going to be inflation and different things like that, but making sure that we spend things realistically. But with the accountability part, we need to think of have a new playbook, because the way we've always done things has not worked. The issues that we are talking about, the streets, the drainage, the trash and limb pickup, these are problems that have gone on for years and years and years. And we need to have a new vision for that, of how to work together to make these things work better. Because if we just keep relying on the same playbook, we're going to get the same results, the same limbs not being picked up, the same trash not being picked up, the sidewalks not being fixed, drainage streets. It's just amazing to think of the possibilities that we can have in this city if we all work together, and having that accountability of making sure that we're spending our money correctly, and taking care of our priorities is number one goal, like I said. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on to question number 3. Ms. Butler, the annual operational budget for the mayor's office is approximately $16 to $17 million and includes approximately 250 employees spread over 13 departments plus the mayor's office staff. What is your experience that gives you confidence in your ability to manage a budget of this size?
Well, managing a budget of that size is just like managing a household budget. It's just a little bit smaller. I've managed budgets for my home, and I've managed budgets at school. I've managed multiple budgets at school. It's the same principle. You have to use those same principles in managing any size budget. You have to be, again, accountable to the residents and how their tax dollars are being spent. And you have to look at the big picture for the city at the same time. When it comes to managing departments, I manage 120 to 135 14 to 18-year-olds every day. And I think if I could do that, I could handle adults as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm locked up.
I don't mean to cut you off. Are you finished, Ms. Butler?
Yeah, my computer's just having some issues here.
Thank you. We'll move to Mr. Faulkner. Same question. Annual operational budget for the mayor's office is approximately $16 to $17 million. Includes approximately 250 employees spread over 13 departments plus the mayor's office staff. What is your experience that gives you confidence in your ability to manage a budget of this size?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a problem. Basically, you look at, well, I've run a business for over 20 years, for one. And we've also worked with over 2,000 businesses and helping them manage their marketing budgets, and then also walk them through business development. If you consider each department as almost its own little business, you break that down. They have their own objectives, goals, expenses. So it's not a problem or a worry whatsoever. Also, I mean, we're throwing public events all the time. I help manage the budgets for those. Very familiar with negotiations, trying to get grant money, trying to help save money through partnerships and get creative on how we can make the most out of what we have, and approach it from a conservative point of view. So yeah, it's not an issue whatsoever.
Thank you. Mr. McGlawn, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, go ahead.
Annual operational budget for the mayor's office is approximately $16 to $17 million and includes approximately 250 employees spread over 13 departments plus the mayor's office staff. What is your experience that gives you confidence in your ability to manage a budget of this size?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I was a former small business owner, and so I dealt with every aspect of that business, from budgeting to paying our employees and whatnot. But then I've also got my Master in Business Administration, where we've learned how to make plans for different businesses. But even more so than that, I've mentioned also that I've been working with grants for the last few years, and I'm currently managing over $1 million worth of grants. And that comes into effect that you've got to be able to budget what is approved through that budget, and so, or through that grant. They're very specific in the items that we can spend money on, and they're very specific on things that you can't spend money on. And so just taking account all the different departments, kind of like Matt said, of kind of breaking them down to different departments and putting them all together. But just being able to use the grant funding idea of bringing more money in as grants, but also then operating that and just being responsible for the money we've got and making sure that we don't overspend or underspend, and still taking care of our priorities.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne.
As the CEO of 250 employees for the city of Searcy, we do have a slightly over $17 million budget. And working at the police department for several years, handling a multi-million-dollar budget just at the police department alone, and then after being elected mayor, the last 4 years working with the budget here, I feel like I am more than qualified. And what you're not hearing is every year the state performs a mandatory audit of the finances for the city, and they check down to the penny where every dime is spent, where every penny is spent, and we have to show them. We pull our records. We're there with the auditors, and we show them wherever dime is being spent. And I mean, if you're off by any amount, they sit down with us and they want to find out exactly where that money may have went. So, and it's all public record. The other candidates know all this. So, I mean, I feel like I am more than qualified with my training and to handle this budget, and I'm prepared to go forward with it.
Thank you. Question 4. Mr. Faulkner, the position of mayor of Searcy is a full-time job. How will you balance the management of the city with any outside professional obligations?
Well, we're busy already, that's for sure. No, it is a full-time job. I expect it to be a full-time job, and I'm going to give it my full attention. It deserves my full attention. But man, we're highly involved already. We've got 3 active boys, and I will tell you that, you know, missing their activities is a top concern of mine, and that's something that I've already spoken with council members about. You know, of course, we've got agenda meetings and council meetings that are on Thursdays and Tuesdays. You know, is there an openness to discuss possibly moving those to Wednesdays? Because a lot of our kids' activities land on those days. And not just for myself. Again, we want to encourage a family-friendly atmosphere. So are there ways that we can work together so that we're not missing those moments? But it's going to be a full-time job. Yeah, if people are wondering, what am I doing with Think? Well, we have a highly qualified staff that knows exactly what they're doing. They've been servicing our clients for a really long time, and I have full confidence in their ability to continue to do so. So let's roll.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. McGlaughlin, same question. Position of mayor of Searcy is a full-time job. How will you balance the management of the city with any outside professional obligations?
Just kind of like what I'm doing right now. I've got a full-time job with the police department, and I've got multiple hats that I wear in that. And so it's been a really eye-opening experience trying to run for mayor while also working for the city. Trying to balance the full-time job that I'm on call for. Been called out 4 o'clock in the morning the last week 2 or 3 times to come help in dispatch. And then I've also got a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old son and daughter and a wife, and it's a fine balancing thing, especially with all the outside mayoral duties that we've had currently. But once we get past the election and start that new job, then it would be able to work very well together with my family. My wife does homeschool both of our children, and that kind of just frees up a lot of time there. And so there's nothing like school related that wouldn't be able to be put off on that. So it's kind of like anything. You just find your balance with the things that are important for the job, things are important for your family, and put the priorities where they need to be, and just make sure that everything's getting covered.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne, same question. Mayor of Searcy is a full-time job. How will you balance the management of the city with any outside professional obligations?
100% of my time is devoted to being mayor. I go to church from time to time. I'm at the sports complex. I'm all over the city. If I work less than 10 hours a day, it's because something has happened. And that generally includes Saturdays also. This is a full-time job, and my top priority is to focus as much of my attention as possible. I have children, I have grandchildren. They understand the commitment that I have made to this city and will continue to make to the city. 100% of my time will be devoted to this.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, the position of mayor of Searcy is a full-time job. How will you balance the management of the city with any outside professional obligations?
Right. When I made this decision to run, one of the first things I did was go speak with my superintendent, Dr. Bobby Hart. And I made it clear that if I was elected, I would end my teaching career in December and focus solely on the city of Searcy and its needs. That was an agreement that we both came to, and that's what it has to be. This is a full-time job. It is not an 8 to 5 job. It is a 24/7 job. And I could not imagine taking on this type of role and still having kids at home like Mr. McGlaughlin and Mr. Faulkner, and I applaud you for trying to take this on with kids at home. My daughters are grown, and I'm sorry. sorry, that's my dog. My only concern is Searcy. Excuse me.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. We'll move on to question 5, and we'll start with you, Mr. McGlawn. Question 5, what is your management experience that prepares you to lead multiple department heads as well as work with the city council to meet the obligations and expectations of the community?
Whenever I had my small business, I had multiple employees that I had managed. And during that time, I actually turned it into a nonprofit at one point to try to provide technology training to the community. And so I worked underneath a board at that point, and I worked together very closely with them to be able to make the goals of our organization and to be able to just manage that to help get it off the ground. Then last year I became the supervisor for our dispatch center, and so I've been managing them for the past year, while also managing various other aspects of our department, such as like our technology, our accreditation, and a lot of our grant stuff. And so I've got experience in managing multiple projects at once, and that's the experience that I'll fall back on to look at like the classes I took for my MBA, which were like project management type classes, and how to use those to better manage those departments.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne, what is your management experience that prepares you to lead multiple department heads as well as work with the city council to meet the obligations and expectations of the community?
In 1982, when I went to work for the city as a police officer, over the next 30 years, I worked my way through promotions to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, major, up to the rank of police chief. I attended training all over the United States in leadership and budgeting, and then the last 4 years serving as the mayor and having an excellent relationship with the city council. The fact that I have also had small businesses that were very successful, and I feel like my ability to lead this city is second to none.
Thank you.
And just so April will know, we are working on a new dog park, April. We'll get you taken care of.
That's a great segue.
After my long-term people.
Ms. Butler, what is your management experience that prepares you to lead multiple department heads as well as work with the city council to meet the obligations and expectations of the community?
Right. I apologize. My lawn care people upset my dog, and I had to deal with that. Before I became a teacher, I worked in public relations and marketing. I was working for a Fortune 800 window company, and I was managing a department of 10 people at that time. So I have worked in a business setting and managing other people. Currently, like I said, I manage about 120 to 135 14 to 18-year-olds every day. And, you know, I think that when you're looking at the city, it is broken down into departments, and you deal with your department heads and you empower them to do what they need to do for their people in their department. And so working with council, I look forward to that opportunity to work with council. We have some wonderful people serving on our city council who have Searcy's best interest at heart. That's why they do what they do. And I think working together, we can all do a lot more than we could expect.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, what is your management experience that prepares you to lead multiple department heads as well as work with the city council to meet the obligations and expectations of the community?
Sure. I've just been blessed to work in a management role ever since we started this company. But not only our internal team, but also just numerous community initiatives and efforts over the past 20 years. And really, for me, leadership is about setting clear expectations, having very clear communication, that we set clear goals with each department head that they have input into, because they're the boots on the ground, right? So they've got the experience necessary to make recommendations and respect them for that experience. But setting clear goals, creating clear milestones to achieve those goals, and then having timelines that are clear to hit those milestones, making sure that the expectations are realistic to hit those timelines and everybody knows what their tasks are. And then just spreading around the responsibilities so everybody knows what they're in charge of accomplishing and when. As far as working with the council, I've got great relationships with the council members. We've worked on a lot of projects together. They're familiar with me and I'm familiar with them.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Question number 6, Mr. Osborne, we'll start with you.
Okay.
What role would you have as mayor in attracting and retaining businesses, jobs, and tourists?
What role would I have as mayor in attracting businesses, jobs, and tourists?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that's the question? Well, as the mayor and the CEO, it falls to City Hall, and I would lean heavily on the Chamber of Commerce and SREDC to assist in any of that. But being the ambassador of the city, again, it's my responsibility, and believe me, we take a lot of phone calls at City Hall from businesses that are looking to come to Searcy and possibly build or buy property here to establish their business. More times than not, we pass that off to the chamber and let them handle that. Sometimes we take care of it ourselves. Nothing is off the table. I mean, we will do whatever we need to do if it can be done to attract new business to Searcy and retain the businesses we have. It's a full-time job, not just to run the departments of the city, but to grow this city. My job as mayor is to retain the businesses we have, grow and help the city grow. And we do that pretty well. I think we do that pretty well.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, same question. What role would you have as mayor in attracting and retaining businesses, jobs, and tourists?
I'd just like to echo what Mayor Osborne says, working proactively with our chamber to attract businesses and working with the businesses that we have to keep them here and to keep our workforce where it should be. That's just something that you would do. If it means going to Little Rock and talking to the Economic Development Committee in Little Rock and say, who are you looking at bringing to Arkansas? And
I think we've lost audio. Ms. Butler, can you hear me?
recreational events that definitely attracts tourists. Our arts and entertainment, get downtown this weekend, will attract a ton of tourists. We have to spend time looking at those activities. A true community center would attract more people. It could attract conventions and more tourists that way. You know, the 2024 eclipse, there's already a planning commission that has been put together. Thousands of people are expected to descend on Searcy during that time. So we have to be ready for our tourists, first of all, and we have to be ready to attract new businesses by keeping our city clean, maintaining our streets and sanitation. Those things are important to build on economic development and tourism.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, what role would you have as mayor in attracting and retaining businesses, jobs, and tourists?
Absolutely. As I mentioned during the introduction, I currently serve on the Searcy Economic Development Corporation Board. I have helped lead the Chamber Small Business Committee. I'm the community connection for Global Entrepreneurship Week. So this is something that we actively work on and have been working on for a long time, and it's multi-layered. So if you talk about jobs, you know, trying to fill the current 300 to 400 jobs, active recruitment, trying to get families to move here, enhancing quality of life. So Searcy is the top choice when looking at a place to live and raise your family. We've worked with the conductor out of Conway, the Waldron Center, Entrepreneurship Center here at Harding, as well as chamber programs. So training and empowerment of our small businesses so that they know if they're a retail shop, how to get onto e-commerce. One of the things that I helped initiate was the Revolution Fund while we were going through Small Business Revolution, because only 6 businesses were going to win the makeover. So we raised money for local small businesses, and that the Chamber and SRDC is using some of those funds now to launch a free e-commerce solution to local businesses if you're a chamber member. So that's something that you need to dig into if you haven't already taken a part of that. We have to generate an ecosystem that is business friendly, that we're consistently pushing shopping local. As far as industry goes, you know, Searcy is very limited as far as available land to prep for attracting industry. That's something we're actively looking at, trying to identify where is some optimal sites so that we can work with the AEDC and the state on attracting industry. That's something we're working on right now. And marketing. So that's something I can definitely help with. I've been doing it over 20 years. We actually do marketing for tourism for other towns around Arkansas and do it for Searcy as well. And so that's something I can definitely aid in.
Thank you. Mr. McGlawn, same question. What role would you have as mayor in attracting and retaining businesses, jobs, and tourists?
Just like everybody else has said, like it's a matter of getting out and finding what's available to come to the city. And once it's in the city, being able to support that. A lot of our small businesses, if we could help them continue to succeed and give them more business from the city itself, it will help them as well. Also just meeting with various members of the community, including state and local leaders, just people on the street, like I've been doing with my running adventure. Just finding out what people want and just getting with the Chamber of Commerce and like the different committees for the state. And then also we could look at different cities and the mayors of different cities and see what is being successful in their towns, what they're doing differently so that we can learn from the cities that are growing and expanding. Not that we want to be like a Conway or, but to have that to where we can make our city successful. Like they've had so much growth, if we can see what they're doing right and to be able to learn from that. I think that's a big part of it, is just being able to learn from others and be able to attract the jobs and tourists and whatnot.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question. Ms. Butler, you're first up on this one. What can the city do to help local employers find and develop qualified workers?
Well, we have to look at some resources that I feel are underutilized in our city. Our Arkansas State Searcy, ASU Searcy is a huge factor. They have so much technical training that and students who are graduating from their programs that would be assets to a lot of employers here. Same with Harding. Their students, their graduates have added so much to the Searcy community over the years, starting their own businesses and maintaining those businesses, but also they make wonderful employees as well. And so I think that the school system does a really good job, the public school system does a really good job of trying to host events where employers come to. We have a job fair where employers come to the high school and they talk to our kids about openings and what it would take for them to have a job there, and then they look at the training necessary for that. So I just think that we keep doing these job fairs that we've been doing. We keep encouraging our people who are here in the city to stay here and to work here, and that they can find sustainable incomes here.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, same question. What can the city do to help local employers find and develop qualified workers?
Yeah, and some of this has been addressed in previous questions. Y'all, this is a hard nut to crack. This is an issue not just in Searcy, but all throughout Arkansas and the nation. Trying to find, recruit, develop a qualified workforce. You know, it's multi-layered. So yes, we have to continue the collaborative efforts between our school systems, our higher education systems. We also need to work with other organizations for upward mobility programs, for those that maybe need a GED, or if there's some barriers why they're not getting employment. We have to market the fire out of our community. We have to really lean into our points of differentiation, why we are the best place to raise your family and try to recruit in. And as I mentioned before, efforts like trying to promote Searcy as a STEM hub for robotics can recruit more families in here. There's innovation centers in like Newport and Benton where they've got training development programs. That's something we need to look at too, but ASU is doing a good job. Searcy schools in Riverview and the Chamber's got a workforce development committee. You know, it's a hard nut to crack, and it's an issue that a lot of people are working on, but that's something that we've got to spend a lot of time with, and we need to think outside the box.
Thank you. Mr. McGlawn, same question. What can the city do to help local employers find and develop qualified workers?
Just like they've all said, we need to have the job fairs where people can come and meet up with the employers. But even more than that, like, and they've also mentioned having working relationships with the schools and universities, but there's some people that can't go back to school for whatever reason. And so it's finding those people and getting them training outside of those organizations like ASU and Harding, and just offering more development opportunities for the people to try to get them better qualified for the jobs that are open. As I mentioned, one of my runs, I'd run into a guy who had said, "Hey, I'm a felon, and if you get elected, is there any way you can help me find a job?" I said, definitely. Like, there's a lot of people that are not able to work at various places because of their past, and we need to get past their past to take that stigma away and help them to become successful members of the society, not just leaving them to fend for themselves, but finding things that they can do to grow as people, and not just keep working on the streets and just trying to go day by day, but try to actually get them help to get them off the streets and to be able to give as many people jobs as possible. Because there's a lot of people that are willing to work, they're just not able to find the jobs. And so it's just a matter of trying to get people connected with the organizations that are able to hire them, and then get them developed to be able to to succeed in that.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne, what can the city do to help local employers find and develop qualified workers?
Well, I have to echo everything that the other three candidates have said. It all starts with the education from high school to ASU, Searcy, to Harding, to more job fairs. We deal with this constantly from employers when I meet with them, having difficulty finding the workforce without people having to drive in a long distance, drive into Searcy. So this is nothing new. It is a hard nut to crack, and we're doing everything we can with continuing education in the city. We have a program at sanitation as far as CDL drivers. It's difficult to hire and retain CDL drivers, and the city is willing to pay for the training if the individuals are willing to go through it, and if they're willing to stick around and work with us for a while. But I mean, this is going to be a problem for a while. It's not going to go away anytime soon, and it's been here a long time.
Casey, can I mention something else? It's not really necessarily a rebuttal, but I guess I could use my 1 minute to expound a little bit on this.
I will allow you 1 minute to rebut, Mr. Faulkner.
Okay, one thing that we've been working toward over the past few years is a public transit option and solutions. We have visited with Jonesboro, with Eureka Springs, with Northwest Arkansas to find out what are they doing as far as public transit, so that, and this goes along with jobs and filling jobs. If people have mobility issues, if they cannot get to their jobs, then that's one of the problems. So we're actively working on trying to find a solution for public transit so that we can meet people where they're at, get them to work, and get them back. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there as well.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals or additions?
Well, I just want to add this. I started that with Matt 3 years ago, I believe. I approached Matt about trying to get public transportation in Searcy, and we have worked off and on that for quite some time. So it's not dead, but it's going to take some work.
Thank you. Any other 1 minute rebuttals or additions? We will move on to the next question. And we will start with you, Mr. Faulkner. What amenities is Searcy lacking to attract and retain young adults and families? How and when could those be funded?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of opportunities for improvement in this area. Unfortunately, a lot of our families are going to Cabot, are going to Batesville to use their facilities there, whether it's a community center, whether it's their swim centers, whether they're going to other towns to use their bike trails and things like that. So that's part of the process of the 20-year plan. I highly encourage the public to get engaged and participate with the surveys. Also to come to the focus groups that's coming up. I believe that's October 4th, because it's up to the community to decide where we want to go. But there just needs to be clear expectation, right? We may say that we want to develop Riverside Park. We may say we want an outdoor water park to go along with the indoor one. We want to improve our park systems and bike trails. And that's one of the top things responses that I get when I ask people, what would they like to see for Searcy? And it's things for youth to do, more options for youth. But I want to just be clear on the expectations. And I think this is important. We don't need to beat around the bush about it. The community needs to decide and prioritize what amenities that we want to tackle next. And then we're going to have to figure out how to fund those things. So let's not just, try to not just be straight up front with it, right? So we've passed this 1%. But we're still going to have to figure out ways to fund these amenities. And that's going to be up to the community to decide. That's not something that is going to be driven downward from the city council or the mayor's position. This needs to come upward so that we're facilitating the funds that the community wants to do. And it's our job to help the process along and provide a structure for community input. But ultimately those amenities are going to be up to the community. But, top ones that we hear all the time are a community center, Riverside Park, an outdoor water park, so to speak. Those I would say are the top three that we hear over and over again. So it'll be interesting to see the survey results from the 20-year plan. And then from there, it'll be up to the community to prioritize it. But I'm gonna throw this out there too. And I mentioned this earlier, y'all, we have got to be cautious with escalating costs on development. So we don't need to spend 2, 3, 4 times as much to develop things. We're just gonna have to approach this as we're looking at, the possibility of just a recession. So we've just got to be responsible. It's going to be a balance of how fast can we move with, just being responsible with the funds that the public wants us to work with.
Thank you. Mr. McGlaughlin, what amenities is Searcy lacking to attract and retain young adults and families? How and when could those be funded?
Okay, so as I've talked to people along the streets, a lot of the same things that Matt had to say. They've all asked about a community center, the splash pad that was supposed to be part of the 8-year plan. A big one was things for teens to do. And so I would talk to lots of different people from lots of different age groups, and a lot of them said, hey, there's nothing for the teens to do. And I talked to a lot of teens, and I said, hey, what kind of stuff would you like to do? And they said, well, we just like to get together and hang out. And so that could be part of the community center, just having rooms dedicated straight for teens to either have games to play. They've also mentioned like laser tag and go-karts, and like that kind of stuff could be funded either through the city or by private entities. But I know in the past we've had those and they've ended up closing. And so it's just a matter of trying to find the best route, and like just with the focus groups coming up and the meeting, it'll be good to see what the community actually wants and work on plans for it to find the funding for it after that.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne, what amenities is Searcy lacking to attract and retain young adults and families? How and when could those be funded?
Well, and I'll echo what the last two contestants said. We are lacking. We have numerous parks in Searcy, but for the most part, our children don't want to go hang out in city parks. They want to play basketball. They want things to do. We are working on building more outdoor basketball courts around town to try to give these kids something to do. I was asked at the county fair about the skate park. Are we ever going to do anything with the skate park? We've talked about these little pocket parks, so to speak, doing things that would keep these kids occupied. But the fact is, whatever we do costs money. And when you ask, how do we pay for those? That's a good question. How do we pay for those? People want an outdoor water park. I get these calls every day. Outdoor water park, a big, nice community center. Searcy wants to be like other communities and have these things, but it costs a lot of money. And with inflation and construction costs as high as it is right now, it's going to be extremely difficult. And I'll even agree with what Matt said. We're going to have to step back and ask the citizens, what do you want? Because they're the ones that have to pay for it. We're working on bike trails. we're working on resurfacing the bike trail and walking trail around town that we currently have, not all the way around town, partially around town. There's just, Searcy is not in a business, and I don't want this to sound strange, but I've had people ask why we didn't build skate parks or roller skate rinks and trampoline parks, and we're not in the business of competing against private business. Having a pool, having a community center, having parks, yes, I'm all for that. But you know, building something to compete against private business, I'm not. And it's up to our citizens, whatever they want.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, what amenities is Searcy lacking to attract and retain young adults and families? How and when could those be funded?
You know, I can just echo what everyone else has said. A community center is I think a huge part of it, and the type of community center that would be inclusive to all ages, a youth room, multiple gyms, a large area for meeting places. And so when we look at that, just like Mr. Faulkner said, you know, we have to see what the priorities are of the people who live here. If that is a priority, I hear that a lot because I hear people say, "Oh, I go to Heber and I go to Batesville," and you know, and so when we're talking about how to fund things, when we do things that are inclusive to all and people with disabilities, there are all types of grants available to help with that funding. And I think we have to, as a city, really look at that, really look at the grants that are available. There are grants for our parks to improve our parks, to do like challenge courses in our parks to where, you know, there's more than just going and hanging out in the park. There's a challenge course there, opening up more green space. But again, it's what the residents say that is a priority to them. And when it becomes a priority to them, the funding will be there in some form or another. And again, these grants that are available through federal and state
Ms. Butler, I think we lost audio again.
the increase in everything right now is the construction costs of anything are just outrageous right now. And so we have to be mindful of that as well.
Casey, do you mind if I use my 1 minute again?
Yes, sir. 1 minute.
Okay, here's an example of how we might be able to move forward faster with innovative funding collaboratively. So we've been looking at the possibility of developing a STEM robotics tournament and training center that could have summer programs, after school programs that would be shared by different school districts, et cetera. So one thought is if we develop a community center that maybe we add on a wing that is STEM related for robotics. And since that is in line with the governor's push for programming and STEM related efforts, then that opens up the door for possible grant opportunities. So by putting those two projects together, there's going to be shared amenity common areas, right? So your parking lots, your restrooms, that type of thing. And so that could decrease the cost of a community center while developing also a STEM robotics hub. So it's these types of ideas where we may be able to get more done quicker and save money.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals?
Yes, Casey, I'd like, when we're talking about grants, we apply for grants. What some people don't understand is when you're talking about building a $35 million community center and you apply for a grant, they're not going to give you $35 million to build that. They will give you a few thousand, if you're lucky, maybe 100,000 if you make it ADA compliant. And if you do this and if you do that, we apply for these grants all the time. for our playgrounds in our parks now, and we do good to get $40,000-$50,000, and you know, we're talking about, as far as this community center, a year and a half ago it was close to 30 million, so I'm sure it's close to 35 million now.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
That I realize a grant or multiple grants will not, you know, fund a whole entire community center. However, $100,000 here, $50,000 there, like Mr. Faulkner was saying, collaborating with other entities, it all adds up, and it does help defray some of the cost in the initial building of a community center.
Mr. McGlawn, would you like a rebuttal?
No, sir, I'm good.
Well, with that, we'll move on to our last question. And we will start with you, Mr. McGlawn. What distinguishes you from the other candidates?
That's a great question. I think whenever I first started running for mayor, I wanted something that was going to draw me apart from it. And so that's when I started my running feat of literally running for mayor. And in the next, I believe I've got 7 days worth of runs coming up, and I will have run 99% of the residential areas. And I've still got some time before the election time. I could get the rest of it done. But just the caring that I have for the people that I've met along the way, on my runs, I've run into people I've previously arrested, and seeing how I've touched their lives 7-8 years later of me arresting them a long time ago, and that one instance changing his life and him saying thank you whenever he runs into me now. It's just, I've learned so much in the last 4 months. I've grown so much, and I know that God's been calling me to do this. Whether I win or lose, I know I'm a better person for I've gotten into this race this year. And I just look forward to being able to work with our department heads, our employees to make the community a better place. And I just want to do that, just be salt and light to our community.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne, what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
I think it's 3 things. The experience, the leadership, the managing the people, ability to manage the people. I mean, that's all. That's it. That's the experience that I have within the police department, 4 years as mayor already, and the fact that I live here. I've lived here for years. My family's here. I love this city, and you know, I'm not going away. I'm going to be here for the rest of my days, and I want to do everything I can to help this city grow in any way it can.
Thank you. Ms. Butler, what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
Well, besides the obvious that I'm the only female, I have a unique perspective on Searcy because I see Searcy through the eyes of my students and their parents. And that perspective really opens me up to a lot of different ideas and a lot of different thinking. I have a ton of energy. You know, Mr. Faulkner and I were talking before. I have a lot going on right now. I have a ton of energy, and I have a heart of service for this city. I chose to come back here after I graduated from Harding. My husband and I chose to come here to raise our family because we fell in love with Searcy when we were Harding students. And that love and that commitment to wanting to better the quality of life for everyone in Searcy. I think that just, and because I see it through a different lens than most, I think that that's really what kind of makes me different.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, what distinguishes you from the other candidates?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the Lord has blessed each person with different skill sets, different experiences, life experiences, different connections. And I think that's what we all bring to the table, right? I think that we've tried to run a very friendly and encouraging race and plan to continue to do so. My experiences has just afforded me to work with over 2,000 businesses, to be involved with most of the nonprofits in town, to work with the chamber, the SREDC, the city of Searcy, Parks and Recreation, with different towns in various aspects, from tourism and marketing and HR and business development. So that's what I bring to the table. I'm doing this because I feel called to serve, and I'm willing, and I'm doing it for our families so that our families will stay close. But as far as points of differentiation, it's just very important for the public to take the time to get to know each candidate and our backgrounds and our experiences, talents. And then, you know, the mayor position is kind of a jack of all trades position. And so I think just the well-roundedness that I've been blessed to have helps just differentiate.
Thank you. Well, that is the last question. So that does conclude the question and answer portion of this forum. We are now going to wrap up this forum with a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate. So we will begin that with Mr. Osborne. We'll give you the floor for 1 minute and let you give a closing statement.
I love Searcy. There's no doubt about that. My family loves Searcy. I support small business. The department heads know that when we have to make purchases, that one of the first things we do is check local business, always. My campaign material, everything I purchased was from small business here in Searcy. I support this city. I support everything about this city. And anything I can do to make this city better, I'm here. I want to try. I want to do my best. And you know, earlier something was said about transparency. We're as transparent as we can possibly be. I think she mentioned the mayor's salary. She was grouped in with some other things. These things change a lot, and we try to keep as small a staff at City Hall as we possibly can. And when we start changing payroll slips, and what I'm trying to say by that is, when you have 250 employees in the city, you're always changing payroll slips. People come, people go. And in order to be transparent, it's easy if you pick up the phone and call City Hall and ask a question. We'll have you an answer in a matter of minutes. I mean, it's if it's not on our website, we're a phone call away. I've said that all along, and I'll continue to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Ms. Butler, 1 minute. Closing statement.
So for the past 17 years, the residents of Searcy have entrusted me with what they consider most valuable, their children. And because of that, like I said, I have a unique perspective because I see Searcy through their eyes and their parents' eyes.
Ms. Butler, we can't hear you.
All of Searcy. And I do think that all of us here have one thing in common. We love Searcy. It's a very special place. But just like any other place, it has its problems. And I am a problem solver. That's what I do. And so I just truly want to help Searcy be the best Searcy that it can be.
Thank you. Mr. Faulkner, 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, my desire to serve Searcy is not dependent on me winning this election or having a particular role or position. I, just like the last 20 years, whether I'm in that seat or not in that seat, I fully plan to continue working hard for this community, collaborating. Nothing gets done by yourself. Collaborating with various groups to see what we can do to create just an awesome community where families want to live and their kids and grandkids want to stick around. And if I can leave just one lasting thought, it would be this, and I shared this with East students a week or two ago, but we have positive messaging on our yard signs that are around town, and one of them is love your neighbor as yourself. And if we can view everything through that lens, then I think that our community and world would change. And here's what I mean by that. If I love my neighbor as myself and put myself in their shoes, if I see a mom pushing a stroller in the ditch because there's not a sidewalk there, then I view her as my wife or my daughter or my aunt, and we get a sidewalk there so she can get to the dollar store or wherever she's headed to. Likewise, if I love my neighbor as myself, if I have no intention of using a swim center because I have a pool in my backyard, which I don't, but if I have no intention of using a public amenity, but if I view or love my neighbor as myself, even if I don't plan on using ballparks, I'm still wanting that for another family. And so I think if we can view these things through the lens of loving your neighbor as yourself, our police and fire, they're trying to raise their families just like we are. Put yourself in their shoes. They deserve to be valued. They deserve to be compensated fairly. So I just want to leave you with that. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Mr. McGlawn, 1 minute,
Okay.
sir.
For the last 10 years or so, I've put on a badge and a vest every day to protect our citizens. I serve each day trying to make the city a better place. Each citizen in the city is important, and I believe we need to treat each one as our family members. I love the city, and I've chosen to raise my family here. And we just need to work together to continue to thrive, to be the city that we want to be. Most importantly, we need to keep our priorities in mind and take action when it's needed, not keep putting it off for another day. Just take care of it when we know that we can take care of it, because our people should be our priorities. Our employees are our best resource, and if they're not made a priority, they're going to leave, as we've seen in dispatch the last 3 months. As a future mayor, I pledge to always do what's right. I want everyone to know that they can bring their concerns, their cares, and their ideas to me so we can work together to make them reality. I'm going to listen to people's needs. I'm going to serve hard along with the city's citizens of Searcy to make each day better. And I'm going to lead by example, because if I'm not accountable, if I'm not trustworthy, then I don't need to be in that position. And just thank you all for your time.
Appreciate that. This concludes the closing statement portion of the forum. And with that concludes my part in this forum. I, for one, want to thank each of you for your commitment to the city, running your campaign and showing up to this event and giving us all a little bit of your time, letting us hear in your own words some answers and getting to know you better. So with that, I'd like to say thanks and would like to turn the program back over to Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Casey. We thank Casey and candidates Kyle Osborne, April Butler, Matt Faulkner, and Jason McGlawn for an informative event. We also again thank our sponsors for today: First Community Bank, First Security Bank, and Unity Health. As a reminder, this event was recorded and will be available for public viewing on the Chamber's YouTube channel and placed as a link in an email sent to Chamber membership. We also want to encourage each of you to attend the public meeting the city is hosting on October 4th from 5:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. at the Carmichael Center. That would be your opportunity to give input on improvements for the city. Thank you for joining this virtual forum, and the Zoom meeting will now be ended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
from 5:30 p.m. until 7 p.m. at the Carmichael Center. That would be your opportunity to give input on improvements for the city. Thank you for joining this virtual forum, and the Zoom meeting will now be ended.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.